Professor Dumbledore, there's a basilisk in the Chamber of Secrets and it has been killing students through the plumbing. Oh no, Harry, what are you gonna do about it? I'm 12. Happy birthday. No, I didn't just turn 12. I meant, why don't you go with the other professors and, teamwork is dreamwork. Or you do it. What? Yes, and you can have my colourful bird and a nasty old sorting hat. What will I be needing that for? You won't know until you're this close to dying. You suck. Not as much as the Dementors next year.
Hey, fun fans, it's We Enjoy. Thanks for coming back this week to join us for Dark City, which is in the main event. We have the Mattitude Eric. I am Matt Fowler. Say hello, Eric Goldman.
Hello. I nearly just burped, like that was my intro, was burping, but I didn't. Hello.
What is this, the morning zoo? Yeah. So the bells and whistles or something.
So we're working towards
Eric the Burper Goldman. Yeah, take me down to the very dark city where William Hurt's mean and Jennifer Connelly's pretty. So that's what we'll do in the main event today. That's a crazy movie, Eric. A crazy movie that both Eric and I dig quite a bit. But I don't think I'm alone in saying this. It is a movie that I don't think this movie would have ever made money. Like, there's no situation in which this is a mega hit.
I mean, look, would it have helped in 1998 to have a star in the lead?
I think so, but even like something like Johnny Mnemonic with Keanu Reeves, like there, you could still have a star. I just don't think the elements of this movies were meant to break out to a broad audience in any shape or form, even though it has a ton of influences from big movies in it. Right. And I feel like, you and I are both fans of How Did This Get Made? And usually, 95% of the time they're doing movies that aren't good, like they're riffing on silly, dumb, bad movies. But this is a movie where it's kind of like, how did this get made? It's good, but how did it get made? Because it's just like all the elements are so bizarre and not incongruous, but just like so niche that you wonder how. I think it was like the budget was near $30 million for this movie in 1998, like how they got the funding for all of this. Maybe it was just based on other dark movies doing well.
It is a movie that has it was being made. You would hope some people realize, well, we're making a cult movie here.
Yeah, that's what I mean. No one really purposely sets out to try and make a cult movie that struggles at the box office.
I guess I am surprised they didn't cast a name though in the lead, just because they must have known, well, this is a weird, quirky sell.
It's going to have mostly Australians,
right? So is there a star we can have? Is there like a circa 98, like a Brad Pitt or someone who can lead this thing? But they didn't, and that's fine because we love the movie. But yeah, it was. I mean, I agree with you. Yes, it would always going to struggle to. It was not probably ever destined to be a big hit, and it wasn't, and that's fine because people love it. We love it.
As far as housekeeping goes, you all know the spiel by now. So kind of like where we are on Twitter, where we are on to send the Gmail to weenjoypodcast@gmail. Well, I guess what I'll ask people this week is to do that Apple Podcast rating. It's to go over to Apple Podcast, which is where most of you listen to us, but not everyone. So if you don't listen to us on Apple Podcast, and there is a rating system and a where you subscribe to us, please give us a top quality rating and write a little comment about us. And even if it's just Shakma, just write Shakma. That's fine. Just any combination of letters will do. And and then over on the Patreon for $2 a month, you can get a commercial-free version of this podcast piped into your Patreon feed every week. And this week we've got Dark City. We'll tell you the main event for next week later, but also that next week we will be doing another special episode that will be a combination, a big Marvel episode, combination Loki finale thoughts and series thoughts overall wrap up and Black Widow. which will be a week removed at that point. So it'll give you some time to see it in the theaters, but obviously you can just hold off because it's a special offshoot episode that you can listen to whenever you want.
And some people will see it at home if they want to pay $30 for Disney Plus Premier Access.
Well, that's the thing. It's like, if you don't mind skipping an MCU movie with the big theater experience, if you're still not comfortable going back to theaters at this point, or if you have like a family of 3 or 4 where it's actually cheaper to just stay at home and watch a movie for $30 rather than spend upwards of $100 buying tickets and food for everyone. So,
so that's not going to be our regular episode next week. That'll be
a regular episode. We'll tell you the main event later. But this will be the one where we're going into another 2-movie franchise.
Yes. 2 and done.
2 and done. That's it. That's perfect wrap up. So, Richard Donner died this week. Richard Donner got up there in the years. He was 91 years old. Correct. All right.
Yep.
Richard Donner, I've saw a lot of tweets floating around after his passing, which is like he belongs in the conversation of pop culture influences, along with the likes of like Spielberg and Lucas, which is that he has the projects he's produced, but mostly the projects he's directed have been so seminal and influential to our generation specifically. We're talking about like Gen X, older millennials. And it's just a sad day, but also a nice time to reflect back on a really a stellar career.
Yeah, it's one of those things where it's just because it's interesting. He didn't direct, like, considering how long his career was. He wasn't one of those guys like pumping out movies, especially, once he got into the not his 90s, into the 1990s. But that's okay because Jesus Christ, the run of movies he had in the late 70s and 80s is just so incredible. It's very reminiscent to me of that run that Rob Reiner had of
he was great. God, the 90s Rob Reiner was crazy.
Well, I'm really 80s, like, the 80s into early 90s. But yeah, it's like, these are 2 directors who have just made several great movies in a row.
I'm talking about post-North.
Rob you're talking about everything.
The apex of his career.
North is your favorite. Just doing like several movies that are completely different genres, but are all great and all like iconic and seminal. And in both cases, it's interesting because Richard Donner, like Rob Reiner, and this is where I'll split off and just talk about Donner, but it's like, doesn't have like a distinct visual style. There's not like I'm clearly watching a Richard Donner film, and that's totally fine when you're just a really good director who does really good work with actors and makes each of your movies in a different genre feel appropriate to that genre. You don't need to have like, I'm clearly watching the look of a certain director.
It's just interesting because this is a guy who sort of hit his giant, broad appeal stride in the second half of his career, because he directed television forever. So we're talking about a decade and more of him actually just doing TV before he sort of, maybe was Omen his first big movie?
I mean, that was definitely his first big movie. Yeah, I mean, he might have done other features, but I mean, you're talking about someone, who directed multiple episodes of The Twilight Zone, including one of the most famous ever, which is the Shatner in the airplane one. Was it Nightmare at 20,000 feet? Am I remembering that correctly?
Yeah, it's something 1,000 feet, sure.
So, and I also remember thinking it was really funny in college. We were watching Cartoon Network when I did my semester in Europe. One of the only American channels we could watch and understand what they were saying. It was Nightmare at 20,000 feet. Yeah, was Cartoon Network, and so they were showing the Banana Splits, the TV show from the 60s, and Richard Donner had directed episodes of that, which I thought was really funny. But also turns out he directed Gilligan's Island episodes. So he was having like a successful career as a TV director before he became a like blockbuster, giant hit movie director. Which is,
like, just put it like in a way, like he's directed a few films after 2000, but really we're talking about a guy whose major career wrapped up by the end of the millennium. That's what was it, 16 Blocks in Timeline, or what spring to mind after 2000. But then at that point he was executive producing the X-Men franchise. So he was behind the scenes.
Mostly did that.
Laura Schuler Donner, Schuler Donner.
He was involved in a couple, but it's just like it's that run of like Omen, Superman, Goonies, Lethal Weapon, Scrooge. Now I'm jumping. There's other movies he did in there.
I'm a
Lady
huge
Hawk,
fan
I
of
know.
Lady Hawk.
Yeah.
Lady Hawk. I liked Maverick a lot. I like The Toy was an interesting movie.
Yeah. Well, he also did a Radio Flyer, which is an interesting movie. They can't all be hits. But those 5 movies, and I love Lady Hawk too, but I'm just saying like those 5, because they're all really well received, huge hits that have also sort of stood the test of time in that Lady Hawk is a cult movie. We're discussing cult movies, but those other 5 have just become like perennial viewing,
I think it's, the fact that we're still in the throes of the MCU on the precipice right now, as we record this Wednesday night, of a big MCU movie finally opening after being delayed for more than a year. That like we look back on the guy who brought us the first big comic book movie, like 2-screen major superhero comic book movie with Superman. So we're getting a lot of that. But if you ask me, my big movie growing up was Goonies. Anyone our age who saw Goonies when it came out thought it was the best thing that was ever put on fucking film. So the Goonies, again, not like Superman, not like the other movies. He's great with ensembles. I saw a lot of people, writing about how great he was with actors because he knew how to direct everyone differently the way they needed to be directed.
Right.
So he wasn't the auteur in the way where it's like my way or the highway and like difficult to work with and has this vision, like you were saying, that sometimes translates into a particular style or narrative, blueprint. But he was a great actor's director who could take people from like Gene Hackman or, award-winning actors or a bunch of kids who nobody really knew and turn them into the fucking Goonies,
Right. For sure. I mean, the Goonies is, look, I freaking love the Goonies. I also understand that the Goonies is not going to for people who didn't grow up with it, it will not have the same impact, but damn, it had a lot of impact for us as kids. And then also, just Superman, it really is true how important that movie is to like everywhere where we are with comic book movies and it kind of being the dominant force, which some people are not loving, but it's certainly been super successful.
I guess I'll get to that in a second. But
the fact that Superman was the first big comic book superhero movie ever, and the fact that, yes, I understand you can be like, oh, there's Otis and there's some campy humor in it, but that so much of it was taken seriously. First and foremost, Superman was taken seriously. Like Superman as a character was not played for camp. And I know that was a battle that they had even making the movie because some people thought he should. And also you think about the scenes on the farm at the beginning. I think that's what really establishes that, is that it's like that's played so straight and played, which I know sounds funny now when of course comic book movies would be played straight, but it was not necessarily going to be that.
I was scared of heart attacks forever as a kid because of that he held his arm. I had to be explained what happened because I don't know what happens when you hold your arm as a kid and you fall over. And
that's why I think of that too, by the way. So hugely, a wonderful movie, beloved movie, but also very important as far as cinema history. And then also, directly important because Kevin Feige interned for the Donners, got his start working for them, was working for them when he did X-Men, and then he got kind of hired away by Avi Arad and went to work at Marvel. The rest, as they say, is history, but was so sort of thankful to the Donners. And I don't know if he still does this. I think he does. I know it was this tradition for years at the MCU that Feige would show before they begin a new Marvel movie, they'd watch Superman the movie. Because to him, it's like that was like
the perfect balance of tone, the serious and the silly together. I have a question for you. Do you think that Feige and a lot of the MCU, the reason why they've been so successful and put so much focus into casting, we're talking, if we're not all the time, but they have a good track record for casting unknowns. And we can even go back to like something like Hugh Jackman for Wolverine, but like dating back to Richard Donner's casting of Christopher Reeve, like as somebody like taking a chance on, like he'd done things, but not movies, up until that point, taking a chance on somebody that an audience wasn't really overly familiar with in a huge lead role for a movie as a superhero.
Yeah.
And the MCU still kind of does that these days. We even looking at too, like the casting of like Hemsworth and Hiddleston in Thor,
Yeah, yeah.
as we are right now in the Loki series heading into the finale.
Yeah.
But
No, I
so
think that
I feel like it's a huge influence.
I 100% agree. And while, yes, everyone jokes about like part of that might have been Marvel, especially at the time under when it was all under Ike Perlmutter being frugal, there's also something to be said for it's a lot easier to sell the audience on an unknown as this bigger than life character than someone that has a lot of baggage. Like that's Tom Cruise wearing a Superman costume versus like someone I've never seen before. It's a lot easier to sell that. And I think there's something very true about that. By the way, I think I said Feige interned for the Donners. I do not know why I said that. He worked for them. He was worked there, and he was an associate producer on the first X-Men, which like Donner, they gave him.
And what is that if not a glorified intern? Right?
Again, everything worked out just fine for Kevin Feige. But
so, speaking of people who aren't exactly enthusiastic that superhero movies still rule the landscape to this day, just got a few quick stories before we head into our good things to enjoy.
Yeah,
which is that Steven Dorff, has he ever been in a movie with Scarlett Johansson? Were they ever in a movie together? I didn't do research on this.
I can't think of one.
But I'm just wondering why he was asked by the Independent about Black Widow. I don't know. Anyway, Steven Dorff has decided to basically the latest person to throw superhero movies under the bus. And he's embarrassed for Scarlett Johansson. He's like, I still hunt out good shit because I don't want to be in Black Widow. It looks like garbage to me. It looks like a bad video game. I'm embarrassed for those people. I'm embarrassed for Scarlett. I'm sure she got paid $5-7 million, but I'm embarrassed for her. I don't want to be in those movies. I really don't. I want to find the kid director that's going to be the next Kubrick, and I'll act for him instead. The only thing I really wanted to say about this, aside from asking why someone was asking Steven Dorff about Scarlett Johansson, is that someone needs to tell Steven Dorff that his best role was in a superhero movie.
Right. Yeah. This is true. Yeah, I've mixed feelings about this in that on one hand, yes, I fundamentally disagree with him. Look, in the landscape of cinema, and I think I've said this before, I agree. It is unfortunate how dominated everything is, not just by super movies, but franchises in general. I don't want to be a hypocrite here. I fucking love that shit. But I also understand that I do think it was a better world when you could have a bigger mix at your multiplex of different kinds of movies. And that now we've just turned into this thing where that's the world of the streamers. The streamers are where all the mid-budget movies now are, especially now more than ever the last year. That's where they're going to exist now. Yeah. And the multiplex is becoming all about the mega franchises, which are mostly superhero, but not all. And I think there's something, unfortunate about that. Now, on the other hand, I think a lot of that stuff is great. Not all, but a lot of it is. So I fundamentally disagree with him. On the other hand, of course, I also think it's funny when something like this happened because you get kind of the crazy Uber fans online who are going to get so angry and kind of out for blood with Steven Dorff, where it's like, it's just one dude saying something that you might disagree with.
Yeah, I know. It gets Steven Dorff more publicity than he needs at the moment. I don't know. I don't even know what he was plugging, or I don't know why anyone was talking to him, is my point. But speaking of superhero movies and streaming services, it was announced that Zack Snyder's next movie, which is called Rebel Moon, unfortunately, Eric, not Laser Moon. This is not a repeat, not a remake of Laser Moon. A psychosexual killer, a lethal game of cat and mouse. Tracy Lord stars in Laser Moon. Is Zack Snyder's doing a movie called Rebel Moon. It's about a peaceful colony at the edge of the galaxy, and they struggle against armies sent by a tyrant named whatever, I can't even say it, Belisarius. To combat the threat, they send a young woman to gather warriors from neighboring planets to make a stand against the invading force. But it's at Netflix. So he's returning to Netflix for his next project. Yeah. And you and I were talking about this a little bit when we were talking about Army of the Dead and just Zack Snyder in general, which is that Netflix lets you do whatever you want and lets you make movies for as long as you want. You're going to get no notes. And that's why I'm wondering if Zack Snyder is just going to make movies for Netflix for the rest of his life. I don't know how we can go back to the studio system after making Army of the Dead and having them allow it be 2.5 hours long when it didn't need to be.
I mean, for the time being, I think the answer is yes. Never say never, never. Obviously, the landscape can change. But right now, it seems like the perfect place for him, especially if, they keep doing what they did with Army of the Dead, which I felt like was a very big, test for him and other filmmakers of his kind of like we're going to play it in theaters as well, and it'll be exclusively in theaters for a week, just because he wants full creative control. He wants to take as long as he wants, but he also does care about the theatrical experience and big screens. So if they can keep providing that, which I think they kind of went out of their way with Army of the Dead to prove they could, then
but also when they did that with Army of the Dead, when there was really no competition.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, based on how the pandemic ultimately shakes out for us and and Hollywood in general, like being able to release a movie for just a week in the way they did Army of the Dead, we'll have to see how that works. But I can't imagine him going back to a studio that's going to tell him he can't make a 3.5 hour movie, and they're going to say cut an hour out of this, when he can go to Netflix and they're like, make it 5 hours. We don't give a shit.
Right. It's always your cut, Zach.
Every cut is the Snyder cut.
Yes. That's, by the way, it's funny when I see people lamenting online, like, he's never going to come back to the Snyderverse. I'm like, isn't all of his movies the Snyderverse? I understand what you mean is the DC Snyderverse, but this is the Snyderverse, guys. We're just living in it.
Are we in the Snyderverse? Really?
Yes.
I think we're in the Snyderverse.
Yes. By the way, I'm totally leaping around, but I just had an afterthought from when we were talking about Stephen Dorff thing, which is, it reminded me of a couple years ago when Ethan Hawke criticized Marvel. Wasn't nearly as harsh as Dorff with kind of.
That's true, but also people like Ethan Hawke way more than Stephen Dorff. So.
Oh yeah, he's coming from a place of much bigger current.
But
success.
Also, like, Ethan Hawke's like, I'm going to be in Sinister, I'm going to be in The Purge. He's not above schlock. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
but also, like, what he said was like, his big thing was Logan, because people told me Logan was great and I went to see it and it was great for a comic book movie, but I didn't think it was great cinema, and that got him in some heat at the moment. But guess what? Ethan Hawke is filming right now, Moon Knight. So
that's right. That's yes. right. Directed by Scorsese. Yeah.
And so I'm just saying, if at some point Stephen Dorff did get an offer, or they're like, hey, we want you to do a fun little role in the Blade movie.
He's like, I seek out the good shit so I don't have to do Black Widow. All it sounds like is I desperately want to be asked to be in a Marvel movie. That's all it sounds like to me, is that he wants to be part of the MCU, but he has to pretend like he doesn't. He's playing hard to get. That's what he's doing.
Maybe he's like, if Hawk got in by his mild criticism, then I'm going to go with big
classic
criticism.
Dorff.
That's right.
Okay. Almost at Dark City. No one wrote in this week, so everyone can go to hell. I think. Pretty sure nobody wrote in. Either way, if they did, we'll get to it next week. Nothing's popping out at me, and if somebody did write in something, it was maybe one thing, so that can get sort of folded over into next week, I believe. So our good things to enjoy. I guess I'll start.
Okay.
Since I see you haven't even written anything in the Google Doc. I don't know if you're actually thinking about it right now. So
I thought right as we were starting though.
Okay. So the trailer for the movie documentary Val came out, and it looks really interesting, and it's about Val Kilmer, who, very fortunately enough to make a movie, decades later, toted around a video camera like
Soleil Moon Frye.
Much like Soleil Moon. What was that? Kid 90? What was that called?
I believe so. Yeah.
Just carried a video camera around everywhere, from when he was a child to like when he was a teenager, acting and just putting on skits in his room or like regional theater, but then onto actual movie sets of stuff he was in, like Top Gun and Tombstone.
And with movie stars or
with other movie stars and his castmates. Yeah. He was like the guy, the character you don't believe really exists in a found footage movie, who won't put the camera down. And I'm telling you that those people do exist, and they are Soleil Moon Frye and
Val Kilmer. I wonder if they ever walked by each other filming stuff. And
they're like, I loved you in Platoon. And they're like, I don't know why I just did Hot Shots. But anyway, it just made me think of Val Kilmer movies. I feel like there are like, you can count really great Val Kilmer movies on maybe one hand. He did a lot, not a lot great, but what he did great was really great. So I'm not recommending Tombstone, obviously. His best performance, people could argue, because everyone's seen that movie. It's very famous. Then part of me wanted to really recommend his early comedies. Like before he broke out in Top Gun and then started getting all these dramas, he did 2 really great 80s comedies. He did Real Genius, which I think That's with the movie where he shines more as a comedic talent. He also did the Zucker brothers' Top Secret, which is very Naked Gun-like, but because it's Naked Gun-like, he's playing it straight. So like Leslie Nielsen, he's playing it straight. The silliness is happening around him. He's not actually like being funny. The funny is that he's treating it seriously. But that is also a very funny movie. I decided to go to a movie that I'm pretty sure no one saw, which is called Spartan, that I don't even know if it was well regarded. I always just liked this movie a lot. It's written and directed by David Mamet, and it came out in 2004. And it was the first time I'd ever seen Kristen Bell in anything. And it's got David Mamet players like Ed O'Neill and William H. Macy. And Derek Luke, I think, is also in it. But Val Kilmer is the lead. And it's basically the president's daughter has been kidnapped. And Kristen Bell plays the president's daughter. It was taken before Taken, because she gets kidnapped and is like, they have to find her quick because she's going to be lost forever in the sex trafficking ring. And so
although it's not her father, the president, who has a special set of skills, I take it.
No. It is her father, the president. See, that would be more like Air Force One.
Yes,
like, this president can fight.
Right.
No, this president, if I remember the film correctly, is a piece of shit. But they bring in Val Kilmer's character, and because it's David Mamet, nothing's spelled outright. A lot of talking around things, a lot of speaking in code. You don't really actually kind of know what's going on for a few minutes because they don't say anything directly. But I liked it quite a bit. I was very surprised that it cost $23 million when I'm looking at the budget right here, because it seems like a very small movie. Mm-hmm. It's called Spartan literally because of, and this goes back to our Zack Snyder talk, because of that talk about King Leonidas sending one Spartan soldier to do things. And so that's kind of like Val Kilmer's role. I thought the movie
strangely released by Warner Brothers, I see, a year before 300. So they had Spartans on the mind.
This was very under the radar film that I liked so much that, I bought it on DVD when I saw it in a used DVD bin at a Hollywood Video one time. I was like, yeah, I'll own that. I liked it a lot. So I'm recommending that Val Kilmer movie. But also his funny ones too. So, but that one, because I'm pretty sure it would be very low percentage of our listeners that have seen that movie or even heard of it. I don't know where you can watch it. I should have looked that up. You usually do that, so I rely on you. I'll do it while you list your thing.
Okay, but I will say, I vaguely remember Spartan existing, like looking at like Mamet doing this in the cast. I'm like, yeah, I kind of remember this, but I was like, oh, okay, Kristen Bell. Like obviously she wasn't the star when she did this, but I had no memory of that. But I see the poster is her with I guess Val kind of over her eyes there. I thought about I could.
Okay, it's only rentable. Sorry, everyone.
But as long as it's available.
Oh yeah, it's available.
We talked about movies that are like why we haven't done Strange Days, which is just not legally available currently to rent, buy, or anything, which is a whole stupid thing with our modern era of anything's accessible except some things are not.
Except Strange Days.
Except Strange Days and a bunch of other random 20th Century Fox movies. No, so I was trying to decide because I hadn't made a decision on what to do, and then I was like, what do I do? And then I was like, a good thing to enjoy. It doesn't have to be something I freaking love. So I'm going to do something very of the now, which is and also a tempered recommendation for two reasons. One is that I like it. I don't freaking love it, but I like it. But also I haven't seen the third part of it.
Okay, so I originally wrote this on the Google Doc before I erased it. I don't know if you saw the Google Doc earlier today, but I wrote Fear Street.
Yeah, okay.
So and that's what I assume you're about to say.
You are correct. Which, as we record this on Wednesday night, I have seen the second part, which is coming out this Friday, but I have not seen the third part yet. But I can say I very much enjoyed the first two parts. It was interesting because I had a little bit of the whiplash with it because I went into it a little overhyped. Like I'd seen a bunch of very positive responses on Twitter that got me a little overhyped. And then I watched it and I go, it's good. But I didn't think it was quite as great as certain people, even Matt Fowler's tweeted made me expect.
I think I liked it. Yeah, I like why I should be recommending it. I liked it more.
Yeah, this is a good thing to enjoy though, and I enjoyed it. And it's good. It's this trilogy of movies based on R.L. Stein's kind of older skewing books from the era. Although from what I gather, because I never read them, it's like the fact that these movies are like pretty, very like hard R, and the gore department is actually further than those books read.
Yeah. So I think that's what I enjoyed, is that I thought it balanced nicely the teenage tone of those books with some really fucking dark stuff. So
yeah, and actually I went back and forth even on the visuals of it, because especially the first one, which obviously, you know, you can tell by the title, Fear Street 1994, is, you know, these three parts that each are set in a different year, that okay, set in 94 and evoking horror movies of that era. It was a little jarring to me, not jarring, just a little weird to me that it's shot on digital, so it doesn't look like movies of that era because it's not shot on film. But then in a way, I kind of liked it, because it kind of made it almost a little more perverse, that it's very modern looking on the glossy sort of digital look, but then really gory, you know, stuff happens in the middle of it. And it's, you know, likable cast, likable supporting characters. You know, kind of it's a slasher movie, but there's a supernatural kind of backstory to it that I enjoyed. And, you know, the second one, there's kind of a framing device that allows each one to go further back in time, but it's still continuing a story.
Yeah, for me, I think that was an interesting element, is that there are three parts that's telling one story, but they go backwards in time, which is something you don't usually do, because you consider that to be just prequel talk. And then, yeah, so I thought that was a really interesting direction for the narrative to go.
Yeah. And you know, it's like I think it's a fun cast in that it's like there's some people I just straight up hadn't seen at all, mixed in with some, you know, familiar faces, mixed in with people that obviously I know very well, like Gillian Jacobs, Gillian. How did I say her name wrong?
It's because I was the one who was confused about it. So
yeah, all those years of interviewing her and making sure I got it right, I screwed it up. And then the second one debuting this weekend is 1978. You know, the one thing that was off-putting at first to me was the first one goes so hard in the beginning on an homage to Scream that it was almost like, pull back a little bit, guys, to the fact that even the music sounds similar. And then I saw it's the same composer. So no shit. And there was a couple of very sort of direct pulls from Scream. Not, you know, they're not hiding that. I just thought, oh, go a little easier. But then as it goes on, it's doing its own thing while also kind of paying homage to what came before. And then 1978, even though set technically right before the 80s, clearly pulling from Friday the 13th and sort of the camp, you know, slasher movie craze of that era. And yeah, it's really fun. It's huge on the needle drops. It did drive me crazy that they didn't even try to make sure everything came out by 1994.
No, some things came out in 95, some things were just from the 80s. Yeah, it didn't matter.
Yeah. But yeah, I definitely enjoyed it. And the second one kind of solidified it for me. That, yeah, I was like, okay, I'm into this now. I'm excited for the third one. So yeah, I enjoy it. It's a good thing. So check it out. It's also interesting to see kind of the pedigree of it and how long they were trying to make this as a movie, and see like Kyle Killen, who created Awake. Yeah. And the much more short-lived Lone Star that I enjoyed for the 2 or 3 weeks it aired was one of the writers on this.
But he also created that show that I can't remember the name of that had Christian Slater and Steve Zahn playing brothers.
Yes, I recall that as well.
Speaking of Steve Zahn, there's a show coming out on HBO this weekend called The White Lotus. And if you're interested in seeing Steve Zahn's full cock and balls, please watch The White Lotus this weekend.
I was like, maybe he'll say penis, but
no, because it's not just that. It is very pronounced what he's doing in the scene. So also that leads me into Fear Street, because in The White Lotus is Fred Heschinger, who's in the first episode, 1994 of Fear Street, and is also in the Netflix movie that was going to be theatrically released, but was pushed to streaming or bought by streaming because of the pandemic, called The Woman in the Window with Amy Adams.
Yeah.
So it's just because I watched that, then I watched Fear Street, and then I watched the first episode of White Lotus. He just feels like he's in everything for me. And I understand like if it's very easy to not have seen any of those things at all, so you don't know who he is. But for me, he's everywhere and I can't escape him. So yeah.
It's so funny how that's all, especially these days when there's so much to watch. It's very easy, even if an actor's working a lot, that you might not see all the things they're in. Someone tweeted to me recently, like, oh, do you think people are going to get sick of Anya Taylor-Joy because she's in too many things opening at once? I'm like, how many people are seeing all these things? Like, she was in one thing that on Netflix was like a legit, like, kind of hit. everything else she's done has been like kind of culty, smaller stuff. Like, I don't think people are like inundated with her, you know. And yes, now she's gonna have a couple movies opening close together because of the pandemic and delays, but I think it's easy.
I'm sick of her and this Fred Heschinger. Like, they can all go to hell.
And there's a movie they're doing together, Matt, and you can avoid the hell out.
I bet they are, just for me, just to piss me off. All right. So that were our good things to enjoy this week: Spartan and Fear Street, the trilogy of which Eric hasn't seen the final chapter, so it could shit the bed. But I also haven't seen the second episode. I've only seen the first, but I really liked it. Okay. All right. Next week's main event is we are stepping away from, I think, our usual
genre fare.
Yeah, we usually do genre, sci-fi, action, horror, whatnot. Yeah. And we are doing a family film, My Girl. Mm-hmm. And we will be joined by a special guest. And the only thing I'll say about the special guest at this point is that they are not in My Girl. So it is not Dan Aykroyd or Jamie Lee Curtis or Anna Klumsky or Macaulay Culkin. So we'll have a special guest. And then the week after that, we will do My Girl 2. So please join us for My Girl and My Girl 2.
Which lasted as many movies as Speed, and I think held its head higher than Speed.
Had a better sequel than Speed, for sure. Yeah, that's for sure. All right.
And you can watch both those movies. Luckily, they leave HBO Max at the end of July. When I got the email of what's coming and going, I noticed that. But they are currently on HBO Max. So
that's right. That's why I watched them. All right.
If you are listening to this and it's still July, you're good to go on HBO Max.
And I hadn't seen either. So these were my first time seeing both of those films. In fact, I think I say it. I didn't know the sequel existed. I think I didn't know. I still think I didn't know. Not that I forgot it existed. I think I didn't know it existed. Okay. Dark City. Let's leap into that. Full spoilers for Dark City. I hope you guys were able to, watch it. I know it probably cost a few bucks because of the rentals, but and if you watched it, I hope you dug it. It is an oddball film from director Alex Proyas, who is most famous for The Crow. Mm-hmm. Did iRobot? I think iRobot was a hit.
It was, but it's funny. Like, he just hasn't done nearly as many movies. As you might expect, because coming off The Crow, he was hot, and Dark City was his follow-up. And he kind of, if you look at those three movies, it's the trajectory. Like, The Crow was made independently. It got acquired by Dimension. Then he made Dark City for New Line. I can't remember what studio made it.
But then also Dark City, I know it takes a long time to make a movie, but when you're hot off The Crow and it takes you 4 years for your next movie to come out, like, he's not. And then the next time, I don't even know what Garage Days is, which was 4 years after.
That seems like a movie, which I assume was a very purposeful. I'm just doing some.
That's literally an Australian movie. So he's an Australian, and hence why there's Australians in Dark City, filmed down there. Jennifer Connelly, Rufus Sewell, and William Hurt aside, most everyone else there from
Kiefer.
Kiefer Sutherland, like Bruce Spence and. Melissa George is in this as the hooker, and a lot of other people are just random Aussies that are down there. Dark City is okay. I really dig Dark City. Like I was saying at the top of this episode, it feels designed to be an underperforming cult movie. Yes. It is also a really fun superhero movie based on nothing. Like, there's no source material from this, but there is a lot of influence from other movies in this completely. And like Eric tweeted during his watch last night, it does contain multiverse versions of both General Ross and daughter Betty Ross from different Hulk movies. But when you tweeted that, it made me think that Rufus Sewell's character, John Murdoch, in this movie is like the fugitive Bruce Banner running around. You've got Ross chasing him, Detective Bumstead, and Betty is his love interest. So this is like, I'm calling this a Hulk movie right now.
Sure. Well, one thing you can definitely call this, I think, is a comic book movie that's not based on a comic book.
Oh yeah, for sure. Not only does it have like classic film influences, like Fritz Lang's Metropolis and the film noir films like Maltese Falcon and The Big Sleep, but also more modern takes on that kind of stuff like Terry Gilliam and even like the works of or Kafka. But for me, I always remember, and this is 1998, so it's almost 10 years removed from Burton's Batman. Batman, like Tim Burton's design of Gotham and Batman was so highly influential that you saw so much of it, not just because Danny Elfman also scored this movie, but like you saw a lot of it in Dick Tracy. Mm-hmm. And Dick Tracy was very much like the cityscape, the design, even the climax of that movie was very much like Batman 89. And so even in this movie, there's elements of Burton's Gotham mixed with Dick Tracy, mixed with like fights that involve scaffoldings and ropes and gears and like wooden beams and stuff that you saw at the end of Batman. So and then obviously also The Crow, because it's Alex Proyas.
But then of course the huge difference this has is the artifice is built in. The fact that this is a stylized city that exists in a like mixture of time periods.
One of my favorite things
is a story point, you know.
One of my favorite things is at the end of this movie, you find out that the darkness was just an aesthetic choice that the strangers make. Like they could have had sunshine, but they chose.
But they don't like the sun, right?
They don't like or water, right? So he brings in the sunshine. It's just they're basically just like indoor goths. Yeah.
They're goths. Well, they dress like Cenobites.
And they chatter their teeth like Cenobites too.
That's true. Yes.
Yeah. So like you bringing up Hellraiser. So there are a lot of like pieces here that feel like they're pulled together. And like you just also said, maybe by design, because the strangers are putting together like this patchwork humanity, you know, fishbowl. Like maybe they're pulling from movies too. I don't know. Like,
right. But also also the fact that it feels very much like a comic book that doesn't exist. Also makes sense that one of the writers of this movie is David Goyer, who of course would go on to later this same year, Blade would open, much bigger hit for New Line, same studio. And then of course he would be part of the Dark Knight trilogy, and he's been a part of just so many DC TV shows and things. So, you know, he is someone who, big comic book fan, he'd eventually write some comics, adapt a shitload of comics. And I think you can feel his love of comic books here. But of course, mixed with Proyas, who had also just directed a dark indie comic book movie with The Crow.
I'm going to bring up a movie here that doesn't come out until a year later. So they weren't exactly competing like in the same year movies like Armageddon and Deep Impact or Volcano and Dante's Peak or something like that. But The 13th Floor came out in 99 and was very similar. It was a LA noir, your reality is not what it seems style movie that, and it's interesting that Christopher Nolan, when making and writing Inception, the movies that influenced him were The Matrix, Dark City, and 13th Floor. And especially when you look at Dark Cities, the creation of your mind of buildings and how they move around, and like that's what Dom does in Inception, you know. So this led to bigger, more successful movies just through its own influence. Especially like you were saying about a comic book movie that doesn't for a comic book that doesn't exist. The entire climax of this movie is a superhero fight.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. 100%. Also, it's worth noting that this movie is a year before The Matrix, and there are some parallels there as well, as far as the you're living a life in a simulation,
and also you're special. You're the one. Like there's no explanation for that. You're the chosen one. You can somehow you have the powers that these people have, and you can crack through the code of this fake reality with your mind.
Yeah. And to me, that really, I love The Matrix. Don't get me, this is not a knock on The Matrix, but it was funny because when The Matrix came out a year later and was a huge hit, I did have just that little bit of like, hey, this is great. But what was also great was Dark City, which was not a hit, and has a lot of parallels to this movie. But such as
Kiefer. So we mentioned William Hurt, Jennifer Connelly, Rufus Sewell, who I didn't know from anything at the time, I'm pretty sure.
Same.
Rufus Sewell for a long time typecast as villains, one of his rare big hero movies. I don't think many of those exist. I know he's played the occasional TV BBC detective, crime solver, but not a movie hero. And Kiefer Sutherland, Eric, this is a weird thing. until 24, which is like he was such a huge TV hit for Kiefer Sutherland.
Yeah.
He had a very solid movie career, and obviously he's in some very famous movies that we love, like Lost Boys and other things. But I think I was looking through his filmography, and because in my mind I was like, what a weird thing to have Kiefer Sutherland in this movie as not just in a supporting role, but like a quirky, character-y, Peter Lorre fashioned mad scientist role. And then I looked, I was like, I don't think he ever headlined a movie. He co-headlined. First of all, he was in ensembles. Like he was like
Three Musketeers,
Young Guns or something.
Yeah.
But then if you're counting Renegades or The Cowboy Way, he had a double bill going on. He shared the top bill with someone else. He went through most of his film career in these big supporting roles, like from A Few Good Men and Stand By Me and stuff like that. He was always in a supporting role. And even in the Young Guns, he was, second or third build.
Yeah, it's true. It's funny. He did a lot of movies with Schumacher, but always in a supporting role or a villain role. It's interesting. But also, I think he was, if you look at this era for him, and again, it's funny because we're only 3 years away from 24 being like, sort of the biggest thing, Kiefer Sutherland centric hit he'll have, and a long running huge hit. But it is funny when I look back on this, I'm like, oh yeah, I think this might have been a very conscious effort of him to become more of like a quirky character actor, because he also did Freeway 2 years before this.
Oh yeah,
and also of course it's worth noting when even him doing the role in Fire Walk with Me. Although I guess I know that Lynch is someone who can kind of get anyone to do anything, but Freeway 2 years before this, which we don't need to get too into, but his movie I really dig, with him and Reese Witherspoon, where he's playing a very sleazy, slimy villain who something happens to, and then goes through a change, and then he's doing a very sort of dramatic, even kind of taking what he does in Dark City, but going much further with it as far as having some physical difficulties. So I think that might have just been kind of where he was at. Maybe not as extreme, but it's like, Brad Pitt always, you could tell Brad Pitt was very consciously like, I don't want to only be seen as this one thing, and I'm going to do weird stuff too, like True Romance and whatnot. And I feel like Kiefer Sutherland, who again wasn't being given the Brad Pitt leading roles, but I think very much sort of sought out some of these weirder things as well at the time.
I found it, Eric.
Yeah.
So 24 got him a few leading roles later, like 2008, He was in Mirrors. But previous to that, I found the role he headlined, the movie he headlined, released theatrically from a studio. He was in the remake of The Vanishing.
Yes.
Where he was, you could argue he was the lead in that, even though Jeff Bridges' face is the biggest on the poster.
Yes.
Okay. So yeah, he's playing this quirky. He reminded me, first of all, it felt like he should have had an accent, but he didn't. He had an American, he was just speaking in his American voice, but he reminded me of, what's the Nazi's name in Raiders? Who burns his hand? Shit.
I always forget that character's name, because Belloc I remember, but
is it Tout? I don't know.
Something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. So his voice, because it's very breathy, almost like he maybe has like, some lung issues, reminds me of that, except without the German accent in this. Mm-hmm. And he's the one who introduces us to he gives us the sort of the exposition speech at the beginning, which
feels like something probably added in post. Like I could feel this movie might have not once had that opening voiceover.
I guess we should also say Eric and I both watched the theatrical cut. The director's cut is also available out there. I don't know anything about it. I am assuming it's longer and maybe makes the movie feel not as rushed. This movie feels a bit rushed with its open. You get a lot right up front.
Yeah.
And
that feels like studio notes for sure, because I'm betting that voiceover wasn't supposed to be there, and we were just supposed to be thrust into this world, and then as Rufus Sewell learns more, we learn more, because the beginning's telling you there is aliens, right?
Yeah, but and it's nothing that he doesn't tell John later.
Yeah,
he tells all of this to John later on. So it is. He's basically like, they're as old as time itself. They can bend reality by their will alone. They got a bunch of Scarlet Witches over here, and they're dying. He tells you that, and they finally found what they're searching for. Later, you just find out that they need humanity somehow and need to find out what makes humans tick.
Yeah.
They have sort of a collective mind and they need individual minds. I don't know how that helps their survival, but they need it. He says he betrayed his own kind. Seems like later on he was forced to. I don't think he had a choice unless we were just going to kill him. But yeah, and then you've got this really notable score too. Yeah, very memorable.
I remember it both because of this movie, which I watched many times, but also because of the trailer for X-Men in 2000. Go back and watch that trailer, and you'll hear the Dark City score kicking in near the end.
From Trevor Jones, who's done a lot of very notable scores like Dark Crystal and Labyrinth and stuff like that. Oh, and one of the best scores. How can I even forget this? One of the best scores ever written, Last of the Mohicans. All right. So
the previous movie that you enjoyed.
The movie opens like Saw. I am wondering how much this movie also influenced Saw, Eric. What with the spirals carved into the hookers that are killed.
It's funny you say that. Now that you say that, because I was going to bring up the spirals, but you probably are onto something there.
Well, he wakes up in a bathtub. He doesn't know where he is. Now, the only difference is he doesn't know who he is either.
Right.
But he has to figure it out. He literally walks around that room trying to find clues. He's got like the Shelby's postcard. He's got the syringe. He's got all these things. Finds clothes, walks out. But yeah, there was a Saw element right at the beginning here that I wonder influenced James Wan in a little bit. Okay. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we're even with that bit of exposition by Kiefer Sutherland, we're still in the dark here. We don't know what's happening with John. John doesn't know what's happening with John. It takes us a little while before we learn that he was woken up, that he woke up in the middle of being reprogrammed, but we see all the sleepy people, like we see that, like, this isn't held for the middle of the movie when we get the big production. We see it up front, like when the clock strikes midnight, what happens to everyone and how they all sort of wake up. So it's not hid from us either. Like that part, that was by design. I don't think by studio notes, but yeah. So later on, we see how exhausting it is. Like, it looks exhausting what they do every single night. Making the documents, like it's like Santa's workshop, and they're like making social security cards and IDs, and then because basically the other thing it reminded me of recent is WandaVision, because when people are like, this isn't right, like when it's the people who like the cop who realizes something's off and this isn't right and this isn't my life. But in WandaVision, she did it all by magic. She didn't have to personally physically work on everything. And I feel like that there are some magic shortcuts they could have taken with some of this stuff, but it seems like that because they literally have to also lift everyone up and put them in a chair. Like, use your brain power to do all of this.
Right.
And then we've got, and this isn't until later you see Kiefer Sutherland, which again, he's one person too, who has to. I think the idea is not everyone changes their identity every night. Like, just some people, because, Bumstead still gets to be a cop a few nights in a row. But yeah, he's making new personalities, and he has to keep track of, like, this is the family and these are their kids and everybody in this whole city he has to know. And then he's like making their concoction. He's like, I betrayed my kind and I hate this, but he seemed really excited to be making like a sex maniac. Like,
well, he loves his work. He just
in front of a very young, very bald Faramir from Lord of the Rings, who is like the stranger he's talking to about, like, you guys don't fuck, which is played by David Wenham from Lord of the Rings, Australian. Mm-hmm. So I could also see why this movie would lose people really quickly, but I'm in. I like it. I like the look of it. I think it's fun. Very quickly, also, it cuts to Jennifer Connelly singing, and we get different sides of things. We get the doctor, we get the detective looking at the crime scene where John wakes up and sees a dead body and flees. We get him walking around the city. A lot of moving parts to sort of keep you interested, even though it's a lot at once. And you get the strangers right away too, also looking for John because he's escaped. And you've got Richard O'Brien, Rocky Horror's famous Richard O'Brien, who played Riff Raff.
And the writer
from the musical stage show, wrote, but
he's the mastermind. And it was interesting with Richard O'Brien because, you know, I, as someone who saw Rocky Horror a million times, it's like, I knew him very well as Riff Raff. But in this exact era, for whatever reason, and maybe it's just because a lot of film directors who grew up with Rocky Horror were now making movies, but he was in several notable movies in a row for like this 5-year period. So he was in Spice World, Ever After. He was in the Dungeons and Dragons movie. He was in this. And it was just remember it being strange because it's like, I only knew him from one thing. And then he was in like a handful of things that opened pretty close together.
And then everyone was like, get me Richard O'Brien. In fact, Alex Proyas, though, wrote this character for him and modeled the strangers after Riff Raff in a way.
Yes.
So there was very purposeful the casting of Richard O'Brien here because he wrote them all to be teachers at Ridgemont High, I guess. Mr. Hand, Mr. Book, Mr. Wall. There's even a little kid named Mr. Sleep, not Dr. Sleep. This is
he's cool and creepy with his little fangs and his.
This is before he went to medical school to become Dr. Sleep.
Yes. I also was looking up the other actors. I mean, Bruce Spence, who you mentioned, who is interesting. I remember years ago realizing that Bruce Spence, who's an Australian actor, has been in every huge franchise. He was in a Mad Max, a Lord of the Rings, a Star Wars, a Matrix, because everything films in Australia eventually, these big franchises, and he will be there to be tall and lanky in them. But the other guy that was interesting was Ian Richardson, who played Mr. Book, who's the leader of the strangers, only because I didn't really know him from anything, but he has an interesting notable credit, which is the thing he's most famous for. He was the lead, the Kevin Spacey role in the original House of Cards. He was the Machiavellian prime minister, became prime minister, I guess. So yeah, that was his big claim to fame.
Interesting. Did not know that. Cool beans. Then I'm not gonna go beat by beat. I think we're sort of beyond doing that for the most part, as we mostly bump around, but everything's we got William Hurt as a detective, and then we learn about this other detective who was on the case previously, and this guy isn't John. He's not the one. He's not like has superpowers, but he did crack the case in a very in the mouth of madness style way. And I know this dude, this Australian actor, as the villain in Darkman, like just because I've seen that movie so many times, but not just seen that movie so many times, seen the trailer for Darkman probably more than I actually saw the movie for Darkman, where Colin Friels is like, look around you, it's all mine. His, big villain line in that movie. Mm-hmm. He played I don't know. What was the villain in that movie? Just some businessman who was buying up shit, I think.
Louis Strack Jr., according to Wikipedia.
Excuse me. I don't know what's happening.
You have that reaction when you hear the name Louis Strack Jr.
I do. No. So from Darkman to Dark City, Detective Walensky is somebody who's basically been driven mad by this case, but also because through this case, he realized there's no way to get out of this city. Going around on the subways, like there was no way. And then he even makes these leaps where he's like, I'm not me. My wife isn't my wife. Then he like really makes these really great guesses as to what's going on with everything. He kills himself later, but that's sort of like Detective Bumstead's Inn, which is a silly name, by the way. I'm sorry, it is. It's a silly name.
That reminds me of Starship Troopers when Krychek. That's a silly name. Is Johnny Rico's dad thinks.
What's Krychek. The name though?
Oh wait, what I said Krychek. Which
I was going to say Krychek is an awesome name from X-Files.
That's a 24 character. Was it? Why am I forgetting the original Roughnecks? It becomes Rico's Roughnecks, but what is it? Rychek, right? Am I saying that right?
Okay, that's still a cool name, by the way.
Yes,
but I always think of. So the thing is, I always think of the and
wait, Krychek is the X-Files. Why did I say 24? I'm just on Fox. Never mind.
I said X-Files, so it's fine. But
okay.
when I hear Bumstead, I think of the Blondie comic because of Dagwood Bumstead. Anyway,
Yep.
The Blondie comic, for those who are listening, is a newspaper comic strip.
Comic strips
ran for I don't know what feels like 100 years when people actually
the weirdest land at Universal Orlando and Islands of Adventure is the comic strip land that's like got Blondie and Kathy and these and
does it have a Bumstead's Burgers?
I might as well.
Or
it's
Blondie's
just so
Burgers.
strange because it hasn't been relevant. It wasn't relevant when we were kids. We just kind of knew a little bit about it, and the fact that it still in 2021 exists is very, very odd.
Okay, so we've got one detective who knows that the world's bullshit. He's sort of needling Detective Bumstead, wife of Blondie, and just pretending he's Blondie's husband. Why not?
Sure.
Meanwhile, we've got John Murdoch running around. This is also the movie that taught me what an automat was. I didn't know what an automat was. I didn't know you could just go to a random wall and pull out a tuna sandwich. Like, I didn't know what that was.
It brought back a sense memory for me and gave me the name automat. But what I remembered while watching this was my past life was that I went to an automat as a kid and I looked it up last night to be sure that I wasn't crazy, that yes, there was still scattered automats to 1991, even though by the 70s, they were big in the 50s, but the 70s fast food chains, it kind of really hurt them and they were gone completely by 91, but you might have scattered ones. And there was one in North Hollywood that my elderly babysitter, who probably been going there forever, took me to a few times, but I thought it was cool. Like that wall of like vending machine things. And by the way, they still exist in Japan and some other places, I think. I remember going there as a kid, and I believe that exact location is a strip club now. But when I was a kid, it was an automat. So I had these.
Now they've got different things behind those doors. Boobs.
Boobies.
Okay. So, man, I don't even think I took notes in really a notably chronological order. So I'm like, what did happen next? Dr. Schreiber, who is Kiefer Sutherland's character, he likes to go to the spa because the strangers hate moisture. Basically, the strangers are having a hard time tracking down and catching John. They actually corner him, and he uses his powers to kill a few of them. He gets away. So they actively know he's able to tune, which is what they call the ability in this particular movie.
Yeah.
And so much so that Mr. Hand, Aloha, decides that he is going to be injected with John's memories to help him track John down. He'll know where John's been. He'll know where he might go based on his memories. And so, but an interesting thing happens to the second half of the movie, which is that Mr. Hand becomes more like the sadistic serial killer that they were trying to program
they wanted John
to be.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So I thought that was a really interesting take on that as well, because the whole point is that humans, as portrayed by this movie, aren't the sum of our memories, and that can resist things that don't feel right within them, which is also actually something that Christopher Nolan plays around with Inception, which is like, if an idea isn't yours, you reject it. Like the act of inception is hard to do because it's so hard to plant a memory in someone's mind because it's not organic. And so that also maybe comes directly from Dark City, and John's rejection of these fake memories. He refuses to let them tell them who he is. But because the strangers are the strangers and are actually, I don't know, blue jellyfish that live inside these human skulls, they do become their memories. Like they are their memories. They're not more than that. And he sinks into serial killer madness.
I really like the feel of this movie throughout, because it's obviously evoking this noir feel mixed with the sci-fi, but then once you get into like actually seeing the city itself transform, that's just a very cool thing. I love when one of the strangers gets smushed between the changing buildings, and also this idea of they've all been made to think one thing, and there's nothing beyond the city, and how he keeps trying to find Shell Beach. That's kind of the touchstone for him. But how, no one can tell them how to get there. Like they think they can, but then it just becomes this problem of because there is no way to get to Shell Beach.
So not only can they not get to Shell Beach, and probably other locations that are made up for other people's memories, various ones that are on the map but are unreachable. But also later on in the third act, when he's talking to his uncle, where it's like, do you even remember the daytime? And then he asks Bumstead about that, right? When Bumstead's turning into a good guy, which is like, do you remember what we did today? So that, again, aesthetically, the strangers make everything at night, but they also make these people conveniently just sort of gloss over the fact that they didn't live during the day. They didn't do anything. Although like a husband's able to come home and have dinner with his wife and say like, I had to fire someone today. So it's like, that's part of their brain. But yeah, they don't, when asked, that's the whole thing. When directly asked about anything, they can't come up with an answer, but they're just never asked except by John or somebody. So,
right. Also, by the way, this is not a knock. I actually like this, but we have no context for when these people were taken from Earth. So is it evoking like the 1930s through 50s because that was when they came to Earth? Or did they take them in our present, or did they take them in our future? It doesn't really matter. You can come up with your own theories about why are the strangers choosing this feel for what they're making.
Yeah, why did they choose this like retro for us anyway? Retro. Yeah. Well, here's an interesting thing. Without that introduction with the Kiefer Sutherland voiceover, you could make an argument it's not Earth. Because only in the introduction does he say like they came across the shiny, a blue planet. And so it's hinted that it's Earth. He doesn't even say it, but it's hinted. Later on, when John is talking to Schreiber, he's like, where do we even come from? And he's like, I don't know. So he can't even say like Earth. Right. Like we don't even know if these are Earthlings. We don't know where they are. We just know that they are quote unquote human.
They could be from Caprica.
Yeah, they could be. This is actually a whole Battlestar
tie-in there.
All right. We already sort of mentioned the big midpoint midnight turnover where we saw, people getting set up and reprogrammed, and so they have to like literally stick this huge needle into the front of somebody's skull, but it leaves no mark. And yeah, they're just fucking around with everyone. Like this couple's poor, now they're rich. Just seeing what, they're kind of like Hannibal. They're like, I just want to see what happens. They're just very curious. That's why Hannibal does what he does. He just wants to see what the outcome is. He's very curious. And Jennifer Connelly's fine in this movie.
Well, I did think it's a very, like looking back on it, it's kind of like she kind of has a thankless role, and it's one of those things where now we'd pay a lot more attention to the fact that there's only two women in this movie that are prominent. One, even though it's a role she was given, is a prostitute who gets killed. The other, Jennifer Connelly, is the only one of the main characters who's never let in on what's happening. Like, she doesn't ever get to even, to like William Hurt finds out. Kiefer already knew. John finds out. So she's like the only one who just is kind of there, has a symbol of something, but doesn't really get to ever be her own person because she never has told the truth.
Well, her role is weird because there's a whole point where they're talking about how like they love each other. That's real. Like that's real. Even though we're told to love each other and our memories tell us we love each other, we actually love each other. But all the other memories are fake.
Right.
That doesn't make any sense to me. Because the ending sort of implies that they're going to find each other anyway, because these characters are destined to love each other. But again, just like anybody else in Dark City, they were told, they were programmed to love each other. So it doesn't I don't believe it. I don't believe they have any reason to love each other other than the movie's telling us they do. Like there's nothing there. They're trying to give us what Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind gave us years later, which is that like even when people's memories are wiped, true love will draw people back together. And that's like and it doesn't work here necessarily. It works in Eternal Sunshine.
We need more information because we would need to be told they were a couple and then they've been split up, but it didn't matter.
Exactly.
I mean, I do like, one thing I put in my notes even is that because I couldn't remember the exactly what is said between them at the very end. I just remember him going to her on the pier. We'll talk about Jennifer Connelly on a pier in a moment.
Well,
so
she's peerless on the pier.
She is no actress will ever meet her on a pier as much. But I thought, okay, he goes to see her, but he's gonna leave. Like he wants to sort of see her, but then he's gonna go to the beach. But she wants to go with him. So it makes it less creepy. It's not like he's gonna be like, I'm gonna get myself into her life again. And it does insinuate that there's a draw for her, that she wants to connect to him again.
But it also could just be like, hey, I agree with you. This cute guy is just talking to me on a pier.
I agree with you in that they want there to be more than that, and they never quite get there for what they're.
Maybe that's in the director's cut. I don't know. Maybe there was more. So yeah, I think we're pretty good. We're at the end now where Bumstead's basically let in on everything. They get to the wall that says Shell Beach. It's a dead end.
I love his death and the reveal of the full city and the spaceship city.
Yeah, it's like Asgard. They're just sort of floating around like a platform. And so all the flat earthers out there, their argument is proven correct, which is that you can fall off the end of Dark City. William Hurt proves that it's
ironically true. No one in Dark City is a flat earther.
They're not at all. I forgot, I put this way earlier in my notes that the sort of the introduction of Dark City. I really appreciate that the strangers, when reconstructing humanity in the way they see fit, also included traffic. I think that's really, if they really want to learn about the human condition, put people in dark, rainy gridlock. That I think that you'll see humanity shine through in its best. Then we've got the big basic. They captured John. They take Emma Turner. Emma hostage.
Becomes Anna at the end, but she's Emma.
And then they lock him in that giant bondage device thing, and Dr. Schreiber helps him sort of realize his true potential by inserting himself into this concoction and into his memories. It's a fun sequence where Kiefer Sutherland just keeps popping up in his life as like a mailman or a teacher or something like that. But then we get the moment where it's like, for no real reason other than, well, humans survive and evolve, right? That's what they do. He is not only the one, but that's the thing. He's not only can tune like them, but he is more powerful than all of them combined. Like he is, not only is he able to defeat all of them and, explode everything up into a giant Tron beam up into the sky, and they all sort of get sucked up. And then he's got a big sky battle with Mr. Book. But then after everything, the dust is settled, he is so fast at reconstructing the city with his brain that he can do everything they were doing, but by himself. So he doesn't need an army of anyone to reconstruct anything. He is the leader of his own dream limbo where he can construct anything he wants.
I really love this movie, but I think the very end is it's got some issues. The mind fight is like, just kind of like, okay, like, we're doing this now. It's just not as intriguing as the stuff of like just what is happening in the city, the vibe of that, the strangers.
I know the score has been playing through the whole movie.
Yeah.
And so it fits at the end when it becomes a big superhero fight. But that fight does seem like it's a different movie.
Yes.
Yeah.
100%. And other little incidental things I was thinking about was just I need to read more about the writing of this movie, because the Wikipedia page insinuates that the three credited writers all wrote the screenplay together, which is very unusual. It's Proyas, Goyer, and Lem Dobbs, who's written a ton of things, including a year after this, a movie I really love called The Limey, the Soderbergh movie, which he has a very funny commentary with Soderbergh, where he basically keeps telling Soderbergh that you screwed this up, you cut my good stuff, or you messed up how this went. That Melissa George is also in. Dark City was her first movie. It
was?
Right,
okay.
Yeah, it was her first movie. She was in The Limey in a small role as Terrence Stamp's daughter the year after. We know her from Alias.
I don't know her from Alias, but I know her from, what was that Cinemax show? I watched the
Hunted.
first couple seasons. Yeah, I watched the first 2 seasons of Alias,
Oh,
but not later ones. But yes, Hunted, which
I interviewed her.
Yeah, it was supposed to maybe at some point get a season 2, but it didn't. But it still works really well as if you just consider it a limited series, and I really liked it a lot. You can also see Melissa George right now on Apple TV Plus's Mosquito Coast. She plays,
but Matt will not ever watch an Apple TV Plus show, so he'll never see that.
No, I did,
but
I did because I watched it. I had to review it, so I watched the.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I was joking anyway, but but
other than that, you would be totally correct.
Right. The other thing I didn't realize she was in until just now, as we're talking, that I really want to see, even though I hear it's bad, but now I'm just curious, especially now that I know it was a Dark City reunion, was the LA Confidential TV pilot that I knew Kiefer Sutherland was in, as Jack Vincennes, the Kevin Spacey role, but she played Lynn Bracken. She played the Basinger role. Two of Dark City's finest would do an LA Confidential pilot that did not get picked up the series. From the clips I've seen, didn't look good. But I'm still.
We forgot the most important role. She was in The Slap.
Were you with me at the TCA panel for that?
I was not at the TCAs for The Slap. At Slap
Chat
2015.
Yes. Well, you missed a lot.
Well, this is what you need to know about The Slap, Eric. She was in the original Australian Slap, and she was also in the American remake Slap. So she's a double slap. Yeah,
she's a slap. Any part of the multiverse of The Slap, Melissa George will be there. I really dig Dark City, and it's funny. I'd seen it a lot, but then I hadn't seen it in like 15 years. And rewatching it last night, I was like, I really dig this movie. I do think the ending is not as strong, but the vibe of it is really cool. It's like you said, it's a cult movie through and through. But it feels both. As you and I were saying, it's certainly influenced by a lot of things, but it also feels ahead of its time on some other things that would come after it. It's sort of mixture of things. I have a feeling at some point it will be revisited because it kind of seems like that sort of ripe. It seems like a streaming series ready to happen is what I feel like.
Yeah, actually, it might work better as a series.
HBO Max because it's New Line, so Warner Brothers owns the rights. There you go.
Now talk about Jennifer Connelly peerlessly appearing on Piers.
This was funny for me last night because I had always remembered because a year after this, Jennifer Connelly, who I love and I had a huge crush on growing up, she was in Requiem for a Dream, a movie that we love. Not a fun movie, but a great movie. And it was very strange because back to back, 2 years in a row, there was a very distinct image of Jennifer Connelly, her back to the camera at the end of a sunlit pier. And it was a meaningful, important image in these 2 very different films she was in. So I always thought that was funny. And then doing a quick Google, because I was looking up something about that, I just thought someone's got to have to have written about that. I discovered there was a 3rd movie that I don't think I've seen, House of Sand and Fog, that she is, which was made in 2004, so a few years after, but still fairly close. And she stands at the end of a pier in that one too. So it's just a very bizarre thing of this famous actress who people like to see her stand at the end of a pier, meaningfully standing there for like an important image in the film. And that is something she's done.
Well, now we need her to be in a 4th film so that we can make an actual 4-part Twitter picture. Like,
yeah, that's true. Because I had
that it's
3.
actual complete the grid, and she needs to do that. If she hasn't already, we might have to go back through every one of her films and see if she was on a pier, maybe earlier. Was she in a pier in The Hot Spot or Labyrinth?
She was not on a pier in Career Opportunities. I can tell you that.
She was locked indoors, Eric. She's locked indoors.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Thank you for going on this Dark City journey with us. Next week, a way more disturbing cult movie awaits in My Girl. Not at all a coming of age film. It is truly a dark dystopian noir.
It out Dark City's Dark City.
Well, I'll tell you this, it traumatized way more people than Dark City ever did. That's for sure.
That's actually very true. It was a much bigger hit and it had a much bigger cultural impact that traumatized a lot of people.
So look forward to that. I mean, so there, in a way, it fits into our sort of disturbing, quirky movies.
That's true.
But thank you. Until next time, everything is possible, but nothing is real, especially in Dark City and Shakma.
Shockma.
Shockma!